Views expressed by Casters Guild members are only the opinions of that member, and that could change from day to day. Guild members may use mature language, but that in no way means they are mature. Listener discretion is advised.
California wants to make sure you know what you're buying online. Nintendo continues to be a cease and desist machine, and Valve wants to see you in court, because that's the spell we're casting tonight on Casters Guild. Thank you for tuning into this episode of Casters Guild. I am your Guild Master Ric Perry, and you couldn't pay me enough to dungeon that dragon.
And I am your Guild Master Baron Kane, and I do it for free.
See, this is the fundamental difference. This is why we can bounce off of each other so well.
That's right. That's right.
So, with Wizards once again just being so kind to continue to provide us content for our newest segment, Miss the Mark.
Yeah, and it's so funny. We're so eager to get to it, like right in the jump.
Absolutely.
First things first.
Let's get it out of the way. There's no reason to just have it hovering over us for the entire episode.
Yeah, might as well bring it up as soon as we can and dwell on it for an hour.
It gives us more time to rip on them. Is really what it comes down to.
It's true. Yeah, because it's going to come up again.
Yes.
Anywho, so I guess the big thing that I'm seeing right now. And I say I'm seeing as if a lot of other people aren't seeing. And believe me, I'm going to get a bunch of the Wizards of the Coast dick writers coming in to say blah, blah, blah. But Wizards of the Coast is saying that the player's handbook for this new edition of D&D is the biggest selling product ever for them, for D&D.
Mm-hmm. And I thought the claims were it was the biggest selling product in the TTRPG space, period.
I have not seen that claim.
Okay. I could be mistaken, but I thought that was the claim. That it was the fastest selling. The wording is important here. I'm pretty sure their claim is that it's the fastest selling book in the TTRPG space of all time.
Give me a second.
Mm-hmm.
The fastest selling Dungeons and Dragons product in the game's 50-year history, quote, end quote.
Okay. All right. Well, then that's better than what I thought was being claimed. Still not great, but better than what I thought.
Yeah. But here's the deal. So I should have had this.
For context, the previous one was Tasha's Cauldron, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. And that's what I'm looking up. And they're saying that 105... Essentially, it's just round 105,000 units were sold in November of 2022.
I mean, that's a lot of books.
It's a lot of books, but...
The problem comes when you need to back up numbers like that.
3,000 copies.
According to?
There is a site that keeps track of all of the books sold and stuff like that. So, according to BookScan, Tasha's called everything, right?
Yeah.
It's 133,000, kind of like, what I said. But according to BookScan, same site, it is 3,773.
There's a big difference between those numbers.
Yes. Now, the naysayers are going to come in, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to bitch about, but that doesn't count digital copies. And it's like, you're right, it doesn't. However, we're still looking at you have these people getting 3,000 copies hardcover or whatever.
Right.
And it still does not, how many digital copies of Tasha's sold?
Yeah, very true.
So it's also, it's kind of concerning because of that question, how many digital copies were sold, because Wizards is trying really, really hard to kind of corner its market into its own sphere. You know what I mean? It is in charge of the manufacture. It is in charge of the shipping. And eventually, it might be a while, but, you look at all the... Let's just say it is the highest selling book that they've ever done, right?
Yeah.
There's the problem here is those books are now being sold through their pipeline and only 3,000 books sold at your friendly local game store. Whereas a lot of these other like TTRPG people will even openly admit that because of the mainstream value of D&D, it helps them sell games. So when those copies aren't out in stores, in your friendly local game store, in your Barnes & Noble, stuff like that, you know, they're not going to sell as well. And that is hurting their bottom line as well.
Yeah.
And, you know, you can make the arguments all you want, but it's not good when there is no competition. But, and I don't have any kind of fucking proof to this, because Wizards isn't going to reveal their figures, their numbers. They're not going to. But I think they're fucking lying. There's no fucking way. It's a good thing I'm not a journalist, because I don't have to back that up with anything. Because I don't have anything to back it up with.
Sure. I think this is... So this is obviously vertical integration of the highest order, which a lot of business majors will tell you, like, vertical integration is a great thing because it's putting the money all back in your pockets. But for the consumer, it's a terrible thing. Once you are the writer, the publisher, and the distributor, and there is no one else to stop you, no other middlemen, I mean, like, that's the road to a monopoly, right?
Yeah.
And they're really encouraging players to get the book directly from them rather than other retailers.
Right.
The retail price of the book in print is $50. If you go get it at any store, Barnes & Noble, Amazon, your friendly local game store, it's going to be $50. On D&D Beyond, they have the digital and physical bundle. So you're getting the digital copy of the book and the print copy of the book shipped directly to you. And it might be the same price. If not, it's only like $10 more. I will verify that exact price. Yeah, it's currently $10 more. So not only are you getting like both the digital and the physical for only $10 more, but they're also offering a bunch of add-ons and things like that for like special editions if you buy through them. Like a bunch of digital stuff that you can add to your D&D Beyond account.
Right.
So it's pretty obvious, I think we've already pointed out before, that they are trying to become this completely digital product that you're getting entirely through them. And they're encouraging people to do it this way by doing this bundle, because hey, if you're going to spend $50 on this book already, might as well spend an extra 10 and get a bunch of stuff for your D&D Beyond account, including the digital version of the book, right? And it's kind of like, you know, you get people hooked on using the digital product, and then the physical product just ends up gathering dust on the shelf. And then you start to look, and if you get just the digital version, that's $27. That's half the price of the physical one alone. So then you start by getting this bundle where you're like, oh, I want this book. And then you only end up using the digital. The next book comes out and you start to think, maybe I don't need to spend this money to get the physical version. It's just been sitting on my shelf. I just use my D&D Beyond anyway. I'll just get the digital version. And then you're in. Then you've bought in.
Good times. But then that also raises the question, you know, they're essentially selling them for the same price, correct?
More or less. So,
like,
I mean,
if you bought one for one and didn't do anything,
it's not quite the exact same, because going and buying just the physical book is $50. Getting the bundle is $60, so it's $10 more. And getting just the digital is $27.
So, but like, let's just say I wanted to go in there and just go into D&D Beyond and just get this book. No, nothing else. Not in a bundle. I just want this book.
The digital or the physical?
Digital.
That's $27.
Okay. So that definitely, I will say that I will give them credit where credit's due. At least they're not selling them for the same fucking price, which is totally what I would have expected them to do.
I feel like it's a matter of time.
Well, fair. Okay.
I feel like they're trying to get people hooked on the digital product. So they're like, of course they're going, yeah, it's cheaper. Get it here for the $27. And then once more and more books start to come out and they pretty much are the biggest distributor. Like, everybody who is even considering buying the physical book is buying it through them and not elsewhere. Mm-hmm. And once they are, the only option, I think they're going to crank up that price, and then the digital is going to be the same price as the physical. And the only discount you'll get is if you'll bundle them together. I've got nothing other than my own intuition to back that up.
Oh, yeah. I think that's we're all in agreement on that one. Anything that we talk about is essentially, we don't got nothing to really prove or disprove anything we're saying. I'm sure we're going to have plenty of people that disagree with us and would be more than happy to, get into any comments. Like, if we were to ever make a YouTube video about this, I'm sure we'd get plenty of hate for it. But it's just how it is. It just seems to be the writing on the wall, really. But I mean, that also kind of leads us into another thing. Well, we could talk about that later. There's more Wizards missing the mark that we could go over.
Well, the next part of Wizards missing the mark that I want to talk about is part Wizards missing the mark and part, honestly, the Commander community missing the mark. So, starting back at the beginning, last week we talked about the big ban in Commander that had everybody up in arms, whether they agreed with it, whether they disagreed with it. I will just reinforce the fact that I agree with the ban, and I believe those cards should have been banned. However, I do believe that ban was mishandled. I feel like just coming out all at once and just going, these cards are banned, rather than putting them on a watch list or something first to let the community know that a ban might be coming. But, that's just how I would have done it, or at least how I'd like to think I would have done it. That's honestly neither here nor there. Just wanted to put my opinion out there.
Right.
But a bunch of other people were not as kind and started to send straight up death threats through the Commander Rules Committee.
Holy shit.
Yeah. This became like the most talked about thing in the Magic community, whether people loved it, whether people hate it. A lot of people hated it. People were not being nice about it. Like, the day after the ban got announced, one person just completely resigned from the committee. A bunch of other people. There's not only the committee of the 5 people who make the rules committee, but there's also like another like advisory league, which is made up of a lot of other people that the rules committee talks to the advisory league before they make changes to the rules. Apparently they did not inform the advisory league at all about the ban before it happened. Like, the advisory league found out the same time as the rest of the community. Another reason I personally think the ban was mishandled.
Right.
I mean, how you're going to have an advisory league and not have them advise.
Right.
And apparently the reason for that was they were concerned about leaks. They didn't want it leaking out before the ban actually happened, which, if you're part of Rules Committee and you can't trust the people in your advisory league, maybe you shouldn't have an advisory league. I don't know.
Sure. Yeah. And not only that, is who cares if it leaks? This is something that people are going to need to know.
Yeah.
And then just do what Disney does or Wizards does or whatever, and just let it leak. And then if everybody flips out and you want to back up on it, then back up on it.
Yeah. That apparently seems to be the move nowadays.
Yeah. Yeah. If you're going to miss the mark, you might as well just miss the mark.
So anyway, these 5 people, I mean, they're all people who are big names in the Magic community. Like, they're not terrible, awful people. They just made a bad move. But they're not like hidden. Like, these are not the masked lords of Waterdeep here. Like, people know who the rules committees are. People, they're influencers, public figures, if you will. They have YouTube channels. People know how to contact the rules committee. And they started getting death threats. They started getting all kinds of hate, to the point where they were fearing for their safety. It was affecting other jobs that they had, affecting their livelihood. So all 5 members of the rules committee just decided, you know what, we're done with this. And they all resigned. And they all decided, we're not going to be the rules committee anymore.
Yeah.
So they discussed it with Wizards, since they kind of had like an official thing going on with Wizards after Wizards officially adopted this as a format. So now one of the best things about the Commander, the fact that Wizards had no say in it and it was done by a rules committee, the management of the Commander format has now been given entirely to Wizards of the Coast.
Okay. I'm not sure how I feel about that either.
Yeah. They claim that former members of the rules committee and the advisory league will still have some say in the format, but I don't know how much I believe that. They went ahead and opened a new channel in the official Magic Discord, all about Commander and rules changes and things like that. They've made a couple other changes to the format. Like the biggest one that has everybody upset is Magic decks were ranked in power on a scale from 1 to 10. That way, if you sat down in a pod and you were like, hey, I'm playing a 7, other people in the pod would know whether or not they had decks that were around that same level. So, you could have a competitive game without somebody stampeding all over everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
And Wizards, that's the first thing Wizards of the Coast changed. They're like, okay, now it's going to be 4 power brackets. So instead of 1 to 10, it's now 1 to 4. And instead of being decided as how your deck plays and what combos it can do and stuff like that, it is just they have assigned 1 through 4 powers to every card that is Commander legal. And whatever your highest power card in your deck is, that is the power of your deck.
Okay.
Which anyone who plays Magic on the regular can tell you that's just not gonna work. But that's the first change that they've made, and it just kind of goes to show that they don't really know what they're doing when it comes to Commander, and right. It's just gonna be more of that coming in the future. It's really frustrating because the whole reason I got into Commander, I can acknowledge that Magic the Gathering is a fun game, but I stayed out of it for a really long time because it really was a pay-to-win type of game. The formats were always really confusing to me as far as like, this is standard, this is modern, this is that, and like, this cards are allowed in this format, and these cards are allowed in this format. And, I understand that's all me. That's not necessarily a problem with the game in general, but like, this is just things I don't like about Magic the Gathering. And I got into Commander because it's a really easy to understand format. It's 100 cards. The ban list is super small. None of your cards can be, copies of one another. And the thing is, a lot of the time, a pre-con can be just as viable as someone who spent forever putting their deck together, because when you have 100 cards and you can't copy of them, the chances of you drawing that one super awesome, super expensive combo get like really low. And it was just a format that casual players and competitive players could, rub elbows in and be good. And over time, as it has become more of an official format and cards are being printed for Commander specifically, it's becoming more and more not that. And now that the rules committee finally stepped up in order to try to squash that and make it more of a casual format again, they received so much hate that Wizards had to take over because they're receiving death threats. And now it's just, there's no way Wizards is going to regulate it to be casual. There's no fucking possible way that's going to happen.
And it's funny, too, that, like, just yesterday, I was talking to a friend of mine about how they went to a, friendly local game store to play some Commander with some of the people there. They went with, like, two of their friends that they have a really good time playing Magic with. But they were like, hey, we should go out. We should, connect with other people and, really get behind the spirit of the game and, have some good casual fun. And apparently, they get out there and they were like the biggest dicks because of how competitive they were making it, that they just don't want to go back.
Yeah. Yeah. All the problems I had with Magic to begin with have become the problems with Commander. And it just feels like I've missed the train on this one. It's like, as soon as I get into this format, that's when all of this is going down. And I feel like if I'd have got into it earlier, I could have had more fun with it. And it feels like I've completely missed the bus on it now, and I'm just going to have my commander deck. It's going to sit there, and the only time I'll play it is if I'm playing with friends I personally know, and going out and getting into the community is just not a viable option anymore.
Nope. Yep, that's what I have. I have 2 commander decks that kind of sit there, and, you know, if I have people who are wanting to just casually, you know, play some commander or something like that, you know, I'm down, you know, especially if I trust them as players. But then, you know, there's no way I would take it out. No way.
Right. Well, let's go ahead and get into the tie-in from the first half of Miss the Mark.
Indeed.
So California is looking at instating some new laws. So apparently what started all of this is Ubisoft earlier this year had a racing game called The Crew. And basically it pulled all of the servers of this game offline earlier this year and started to pull all the licenses for the game. And so all these people who had purchased this game all of a sudden couldn't play the game anymore because they didn't have the license anymore. And this came to the attention of a few lawmakers in California, and then it became a bill. And actually, I thought it hadn't been signed in yet, but it actually apparently has been signed into law by Governor Gavin Newsom, that from now on, if you are selling a license of a game in the state of California, you have to make it clear that you are selling a license, not the game itself.
Yeah, that seems fair.
And this is not just applying to video games, but all digital goods like movies, ebooks, everything. I'm getting all of this information from Polygon, by the way. Mm. Now, none of this is actually going to change the fact that we're just buying licenses. I mean, I feel like that's what game companies are going to continue to sell, is the license to the game. But at least it'll make it a whole lot clearer to the average consumer.
Oh yeah, so you're not going to have people who are, you know, thinking they just bought a game,
mm-hmm.
which I think most online sales like that, where you have digital copies of something, are always going to be licenses.
Yes.
Which brings up the first part of the Miss the Mark segment.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think you're buying when you buy these digital copies of D&D books?
Because it's not like when you buy digital product on like Drive-Thru RPG, where they're giving you a PDF, and you now own that PDF, and you could download it, put it on a hard drive. There's nothing you could do about the fact that they could do about the fact that you own it from that point on. With D&D Beyond, you are purchasing a license that you can then use on D&D Beyond.
Yep, and that can be taken away at any time,
mm-hmm.
for whatever reason.
Taken away, changed.
Which I'm sure is in the fine print of the terms of service and everything that you signed when you signed up for the service. But here nor there, my point of bringing that up was I would like to see this applied to D&D Beyond. And I know that most of the stuff that was referred to in there was purely for like video games. But I want to see this stuff go further. I want this to set a precedent. I want this to cover...
This says it does cover pretty much all digital goods, including music, movies, and ebooks.
So yeah,
and
so it
video
would
games.
Then.
Yeah.
So it would, yeah. And this would include, like, you know, if you listen to Audible, you know?
Yeah.
You know, you're not buying those games, you're licensing them, and you are, you know, presumably you are keeping them indefinitely, but, you know, that could end at any time.
If something's not selling well, or the service goes down, or anything, you just lost all the money that you've put into it, because you're not going to get to keep those products.
Yep. And at the same time, I kind of wish that this would reflect in the price as well. And I think we talked about this before, not really related to licensing or anything like that, what we were just talking about. But for anything, like where you're paying full fucking price for a digital copy of something that you don't even really get to keep.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, why are they still able to sell it for full price like that?
Yeah, and I mean, indie developers seem to get it. I can't tell you how many indie developers have made a game, and I've waited a little bit to purchase it to save up a little bit more because I want the physical version. The physical version costs more, which it should. You have more costs when it comes to creating a physical version versus a digital version. You got to cover those costs. I get it. I got no problem paying extra for my physical version.
Exactly.
But with this law being signed into California, I can see a lot of these digital stores just implementing it across the board, nationwide, because it's just easier to do it that way rather than like checking for the VPN to see if it's in California and then just changing the wording if it's just in California.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a good chance this is going to change it across the board, but they don't have to. I mean, like, it's not a federal law.
Yeah, I'd really like to see this go through like nationally.
Yeah,
that would be great.
I mean, more and more stores and more companies are just stopping the physical sale of media altogether just because they're getting taken out by digital sales. Mm-hmm. And it's a real preservation problem. I mean, lost media is going to become more and more prevalent as we're just getting all these digital licenses. And I get that these companies are afraid of piracy, and to be fair, they should be.
Right.
Where if they sell you a digital product, you actually get like, a PDF or the actual files of something where you wouldn't necessarily need the license to continue to use it.
Yeah, but again, it's like, because then you could copy it and shit like that. But.
Exactly. But that also, once again, just makes it more and more likely that this media will be lost forever when a server goes down or they pull it from a store.
I mean, like, I fully admit I will listen to audiobooks, right?
Mm-hmm.
Listen on Audible. But at the same time, if I hear something I really like, if I listen to something I really like, I'm going to go out and buy the physical book if it's a possibility.
Sure.
Because it's just that important to me to be able to hold on to that book.
To preserve that media.
Yeah, but I don't think a lot of people take into account that it's a possibility that they could lose these things.
Right.
And again, consider this may be the old man in me that's, shaking his fist at a cloud, but it's a real possibility. It's happened. Again, I'll bring up Yahoo Music.
Yeah, I know it feels like we're talking in circles and saying a lot of the same things that we're saying week after week, but these are updates to these things, and it's important to talk about, and it's important that the word get out there,
Oh yeah. Especially like if it's hey, yeah, we've talked about this 5 times before, but here's just a little bit more info that we got that affects what we were talking about.
So yeah, hopefully as we continue to talk about this, it'll just encourage you more to support your indie TTRPG developers, buy physical, buy local when you can. Vote with your dollar and show these people that these are practices you're not okay with.
Absolutely.
But where you can always be sure that you're going to get physical media?
Where?
tvillain.com.
Oh.
No digital t-shirts. It's all physical.
T-Villain is a t-shirt site where you'll find a killer limited edition shirt being sold for $13 only while supplies last. Every Monday, the site features a new design by a new artist. We would tell you what's featured right now, but by the time you hear this, it's already changed.
They choose the most ingenious designs that reflect everything evil and villainy, as well as works pertaining to anything artistic, pulp style, lowbrow, pop culture, TV, movies, music, video games, comics, etc. All things cool and evil, basically. To check them out and help out Casters Guild, click our link in the description. Coming back in, that is not the only bit of law that is going on right now. As a matter of fact, there's quite a bit of law I think we need to talk about for this episode. But let's go ahead and start with Steam.
Indeed.
So, once again, coming from Polygon.com, Valve has removed all of its arbitration agreements from the Steam customer terms and service. So, just like most companies in their, terms and agreements, it said that, any legal disputes that would come up would be solved in arbitration. And Valve has removed that, so now these disputes could go to court. And they also removed their class action waiver, which means class action lawsuits from a group of people with the same complaint are now on the table.
Huh.
Now, you would think, after hearing what Disney did with their arbitration agreement and allowing people to do class action lawsuits, that would be more of a good thing that Valve did all of this. However, legally, this could end up being kind of poor for the consumer, because essentially what would happen was previously, with all these companies having arbitration, if a suit would come before Valve and it went into arbitration and the consumer would win, it kind of set a legal precedent, and the same lawyer or law firm that would win the arbitration could then not necessarily put, a class action lawsuit out, but could file mass arbitrations with hundreds or thousands of people all bringing up the same individual arbitration claims against Valve or whatever other company has arbitration, clauses in their terms and services.
Right.
And it could essentially, what they would do is they'd have like one thing up for arbitration, and they would kind of hold companies hostage with these like mass arbitration threats. And they go, okay, well, like you can, settle with this arbitration, or we could bring this 50,000 person case arbitration before you, and we could start sorting through that. And by removing the arbitration clause, Valve can be like, okay, well, then let's take it to court then. And then at that point, it would either, one, have to be a class action lawsuit, which is a whole lot harder to win when you're up against a big company like Valve, or 50,000 people would all have to get their own individual lawyers, which we all know is not going to happen if they're trying to get lawyers to go up against Valve. Especially when in arbitration, so like let's say they do these mass arbitration cases with like 50,000 people, businesses are often required in like certain states like California to pay the arbitration fees instead of the consumer. And in California, those fees can be up to like $1,500 per claimant. So Valve would, if they were to lose the case or possibly even win the case in arbitration, they still have to pay out these fees, which at $1,500 per claimant and 50,000 plus claims, that's a lot of freaking money that Valve can lose out on. So while it may look like Valve is doing this for in the interest of the consumer, saying, oh, well, you don't have to, you're not forced to go to arbitration and you can now do class action lawsuits, it's actually Valve more doing a CYA.
Right, yeah. Ugh.
So make sure you're looking at these things when you agree to your new updated subscriber agreements.
Not that we're not going to agree to it, because, we all have a habit of just clicking agree, and even if we know exactly what's going on, because we need our Steam fix, but
it is better to know. Yeah, it's better to know.
Yep.
Either way. But further on into the legal side of things, Nintendo is continuing to be a piece of shit.
Yeah.
And that's saying a lot coming from me with the Nintendo fanboy that I am. They have not done any kind of official comment on the Pal World case, which we know is kind of a bullshit case that we're all hoping they lose. But on top of that, they're continuing to shut down more and more emulators, even though emulators technically aren't illegal.
Right.
But legally, they're continuing to shut down emulators. Another big one that recently went down was the Ryujinx emulator. And basically, Nintendo sent them a cease and desist, and the team behind it, knowing that they can't win in a court against Nintendo, they went ahead and shut it down.
Yep. I think that's what it all boils down to. It's not necessarily if it's legal or not, but, if they have enough money, they have big enough pockets to throw lawyers at you until you run out of money, then what the fuck are you supposed to do?
Yeah. And then on top of that, Nintendo is now cracking down on a bunch of YouTubers, Twitch streamers, and other content creators that have been using emulators to stream and record Nintendo games for their content. Which we all know Nintendo did this before, where they were shutting down like all YouTubers, or at least demonetizing all YouTubers who were showing any kind of Nintendo content unless they were part of the Nintendo partnership program. And that eventually changed. But now they're kind of going back to the same old, because there's a lot of Nintendo games that there is not a legit way to play anymore unless you just own the OG physical media, because you can't buy them anymore. They're just not available. So if you want to create content around these games, emulation is pretty much the only viable way, because it's not like it's easy to take your old NES and hook it up to a capture card.
Right.
And yet, here goes Nintendo sending out the cease and desists and stopping these content creators from creating this content.
Good times.
And it's not even like just like they're sending cease and desist letters either. They're legit doing like copyright strikes against the content, which means these YouTubers and Twitch streamers, where it's a lot of this is their livelihood, these videos and these live streams are becoming completely unmonetizable, meaning that they're making no money from them. Or even worse, the money that is being made from them is going to Nintendo instead of to the creator. Insanity.
Yeah, it's just that corporate weight. What are you going to do?
All right, the last bit of, I guess, legal news. I don't know, you know what, this isn't legal news, but I'm going to talk about it anyway. Sony, having come out with their new 30th anniversary pre-order editions and PS5 bundles that are, the PS5 Pro bundles that are selling out, are now putting new stipulations in place in order to try to prevent scalpers. So, reading this off of Games Radar, basically, anyone who wants to purchase the 30th anniversary PS5 Pro, or any other PS5 Pro for that matter, must have a PlayStation Network account registered with Japan and have at least 30 hours of playtime on any game on a PS4 or PS5 between February of 2014 and September of 2024.
It seems all very complicated.
In a way, like, if you think about it, I don't know if I agree with this or not, right? Because I mean, like, in the end, the consumer is king, and if somebody who's never played a PlayStation 4 before wants to buy one of these PS5s, they should be able to. But in a way, it does kind of stop scalpers, right?
Yeah.
Because you do basically, it's an easy enough hurdle to jump if you are a fan of anything PlayStation. 30 hours of game time in 10 years is nothing. It just basically has to show that you are someone who played a PlayStation between these years, you know?
Yeah, I think for me, it's just kind of like the principle of the matter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, I hate scalpers.
Like,
I do. I like fucking hate scalpers. And like, I feel like there should be something done to stop the scalpers. And I guess it could be difficult to come up with something to stop the scalpers. So like you're saying, it's the principle of the thing, right? So like, there's this immediate reaction that wants me to go, this is wrong.
Right.
But at the same time, it makes me go, does that make me a hypocrite that like I've been crying for years that somebody needs to do something about the scalpers, and as soon as they do, I go, oh, but not that.
Yeah, there's got to be a better way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get it.
But I also can't think of one. Like, you know, like a lot of times I tell people who are complaining about some sort of, you know, rule or stipulation that gets put into place, I'm like, can you think of something better? And like, if they don't have an answer, it's like, well, you know. So it's a complicated issue that I'm not sure how I feel about it. And like, you know, that comes down to that whole, we've reserved the right to change our opinions on a day-to-day basis thing that's at the front of every one of our podcasts, right? I reserve the right that, like, you know, after I think about this a little bit more and, like, you know, hear some more research on it and hear some more opinions on it, to change my opinion. But like right now, I'm not sure how I feel, because I'm glad that somebody's doing something to stop the scalpers. I mean, there are people on eBay that are already trying to sell these bundles for $5,000 or even $10,000 a piece. And that's ridiculous. And something should be done about that. But it doesn't feel like this is it. But at the same time, would I rather them do this than nothing? I don't know. I honestly don't know.
Well, that's a heavy episode.
I mean, do you feel like this is that doing nothing about it is better than this, or?
Oh, that's like I said, it's a heavy episode.
Yeah, it's a lot. It is a lot.
I think that they could have if they really, really wanted to, they could have been way more restrictive. It's just, you know what it is? It immediately screams gatekeeper to me.
Yeah.
Like when they throw that shit out there. But then again, at the same time, that's like that would be like someone saying, "Hey, you can't call yourself a true fan of this game unless you've played 1 hour of it." It's like, okay, that sounds dickish, but it's only an hour, I guess.
And just to clarify, reading over this article again, these restrictions were only put in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
In the West and the UK, they do not have these restrictions, and this is why these, consoles are still hitting eBay in the West and in the UK for $5,000, $10,000. So I guess they still haven't put the restriction everywhere. I guess it really comes down to how we feel about, like, should they have done it elsewhere other than just Japan, and should they have even done it in Japan? But yeah, it does feel super gatekeepy now that you bring it up.
Mm-hmm.
Which I'm sure was not the intention, but that doesn't necessarily make it right either.
Yeah, it's a thing for sure. Holy crap! I think that what it comes down to is when you have, I have mixed feelings about the whole thing.
Yeah,
because basically what it comes down to is if you have people who are making it hard on everybody else, there are going to be rules that are going to be put into place that aren't going to make anybody happy, but they'll make them less unhappy than before.
Right.
I think it comes down to, which is funny because it's just like, you know what? I'm all about fucking pirates. Do your thing. Fucking scalpers, though.
I hate fucking scalpers.
I fucking hate scalpers.
I mean, they're kind of like the opposite. I mean, pirates make it so games, movies, other media is more accessible.
Mm-hmm.
And scalpers are doing the opposite. Scalpers buy everything up to the point where you can't get it. That way you're forced to spend extra money on it.
Right.
I mean, like, they're opposite ends of the spectrum.
Fucking scalpers.
Casters Guild official stance. Pirates are great. Scalpers fucking suck.
That sounds like a fucking guild decree to me.
I feel like it's already been one.
Re-decreed.
Yeah.
Re-decree. That's a guild re-decree.
It's first time.
We felt the need to hammer it home.
All right, so last week we talked a little bit about the newest game being confirmed in development for the Cal Kestis saga, the end of the Cal Kestis saga, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
However, pretty much right after we got done recording, the rumor mill started, and like, it's difficult to even say it's rumor mill because it comes from a pretty reliable insider. Basically, it's one guy, Daniel Rickman, who has come out and said that Cal Kestis is coming to live action on Disney Plus.
Wow.
But that is the only person who said it, and that's all he has said about it. But the internet has really taken this and ran, saying Cal Kestis is coming to The Mandalorian, Cal Kestis is coming to the movies, Cal Kestis is this. And it's like, The Mandalorian probably is the one that makes the most sense.
Yeah. Even though I really think that Cal Kestis could be the new face of Star Wars, if they really wanted to be. So yeah, no, that's exciting. Oh, also, I didn't realize this. I had never, ever seen this before.
Mm-hmm.
We may have talked about it then, but I swear to you, I've not seen it until just like very today, 5 minutes ago. And another reason why I'm really like, wow, Wizards of the Coast, I think I'm fucking over you so hard. Fucking PETA.
Oh, yeah, I heard about this.
I'm just now hearing about the PETA releasing Dungeons and Dragons subclasses.
Well, it's not like they worked with Wizards of the Coast.
No. I'm sure they used the benefit of their open gaming license. But
yeah.
But you know what, PETA? You motherfuckers. You know what this is what I'm looking at. I'm looking at 3 subclasses, each of them with an exploited animal companion. All of them wild animals.
Yep.
How fucking dare you, PETA? How dare you? Exploiting those beautiful creatures.
Yeah.
Fucking ridiculous.
Yeah, we could just hunt them and cook them, and you're exploiting them. Like, come on.
Right.
But before we get too far away from Cal Kestis possibly being in Star Wars,
sure.
I do want to say, reading this off of Geek Tyrant, the last thing that officially came out of Disney about Cal Kestis being live is a quote from Kathleen Kennedy, who, when asked about the possibility of a live-action Cal Kestis project, said, and I quote, "I've seen a lot of chatter online about that. It could be really interesting. It's not something that's front and center at the moment, but what's interesting in the company that we do is that everybody across all these different lines of businesses, we talk to one another." End quote. But that was a while ago that she said that. So, I mean, that's definitely not a no. And with this rumor mill going, I mean, like, I feel like it's more likely than not that he will be showing up. But yeah, it's all rumor, but I really hope it's true. I feel like we're leading towards, new Jedi schools being opened and possibly a new Jedi Council.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like the Jedi school that Luke would run is way different than a Jedi school that Rey would run, which is way different than a Jedi school that Cal Kestis would run.
Yeah.
Based off of, what they've come up through.
I will say this. I think that a Star Wars universe with multiple schools of Jedi, all learning different ways, different things, and everything like that, I think that would be great. Instead of that one central Jedi council or whatever, where everybody's learning the exact same way, essentially. Yeah.
A lot of the Force that Cal Kestis is practicing and learning is coming straight from a Night Sister, which, if you think he's not gonna, consult her as far as teaching people the Force.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, come on, you can't tell me that wouldn't be way different than anything any other Jedi would teach.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a fun thought experiment. But speaking of other things we're excited that are going to happen, Netflix has announced a new Cyberpunk project with CD Projekt Red.
Yep. I'm psyched for that.
I mean, I'm assuming it's just another season of Edge Runners, but at the same time, they haven't officially said that either.
Right.
I don't think.
Which, I'm sure if they did another season of Edge Runners, they're going to do different characters.
I feel like they'd have to.
But I mean, that's kind of the beauty of Edge Runners, because it's like that's just what Edge Runners are. They're not a group of people. They're not a set group of people. They are the people who run the edges of Night City. That's just what it is. So yeah, they could use whoever they wanted for that.
Hell yeah, and I'd be down for it. I mean, I was late to the party when it came to Edge Runners, but when I finally sat down and watched it, I watched it from beginning to end, and then I turned around and had my wife watch it and watched it with her again, beginning to end, because I felt like it was that good. So as long as they put the same level of quality into this new season, I'm here for it.
Yeah, me too.
And the last thing I really want to talk about, and I fully acknowledge this is just 100% my own personal interests. I don't know if anybody else listening will be interested about this, but I have my own guilty pleasures, and something I get an extreme amount of enjoyment out of is every Halloween they come out with these new competition shows, these competition baking shows, these competition, decorating shows, all for Halloween. And Prime has announced that they are making one of these baking shows called Killer Cakes to be hosted by Matthew Lillard.
Oh, hey, awesome.
That's going to be coming out on October 8th. Yeah, I'm more pumped than I have any right to be. Like, I don't know what it is about these shows. Like, I recognize that, it's quote-unquote garbage television, but there's just something about them that I really enjoy. And to get one with Matthew Lillard in there, and it's also got a couple other... they always have the celebrity judges for these shows, right? And for this one, it is a couple of Hollywood special effects artists and a food artist. So yeah, I'm just really pumped to see this, and I don't know if anybody else out there will be, but it's going to be on Amazon Prime on October 8th.
I'm pretty pumped to see it. I mean, at least it's not a Wizard of the Coast project.
Oh, God damn it. Oh, man. Could you imagine?
What, him doing stuff that involved Wizard of the Coast?
No, I mean, like, I know he's already done that. I'm saying, could you imagine if they did like a D&D themed baking competition or something like that was like sponsored by Wizards of the Coast?
I mean, shut the fuck up, because they could if they wanted to.
It's only a matter of time.
And now that you've brought it up for them to hear.
And we know they listen because like they keep feeding us stuff for our segment, and the only reason they would do that is like because they know about our segment, so we know they're listening.
Right, and they want us to be popular. They want to give us content. So yeah.
And if we say something's a bad idea, it's 100% something they're gonna do because they're like, oh, this is something else we can do for their segment.
Yep. You know, it'd be a horrible idea. It'd be a horrible idea is if they gave us like money, like a lot of money, to say good things about them. Shit.
Oh,
that'd be fucking crazy.
It's much more likely that they'll eventually sick the Pinkertons on us.
Damn it. I'm not ready.
Oh man, yeah, like honestly, like this is, let's be real, this is the reason they took over Commander. Let somebody send Wizards of the Coast death threats over banning a card. They'll just stick the Pinkertons on them.
Yep. I don't know why they just didn't do that. It's like, you know what? Use them for a good reason. Jesus.
All right. Well, email us at castersguild@gmail.com. Let us know what your guilty pleasure genre of show is. Join us on the Discord. That is where all the fun stuff is happening. And we will see you in the next one. Bye-bye, everybody.
See you later.
Bye. Bye.
Goodbye. See you later.
Bye. 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 Bye.
Goodbye.